So, the big news of today was that Justin Trudeau plans to invoke the Emergencies Act in response to protests, sources say. As we see here, this is from the CBC today, that there's an act that grants cabinet ability to take special temporary measures that may not be appropriate in normal times. But before we get to that, I saw that this news today too, that Ontario are to remove vaccine passport system on March the 1st. And so basically Ontario is moving towards removing restrictions. And Doug Ford had a pretty... I mean, it's just sad how they try to save face by saying stuff like this without backing it up with anything. He said, like, all of you, I've waited a long time for this news, but please never doubt that the steps we took together, as difficult as they were absolutely necessary and saved tens of thousands of lives. You know, I call bullshit. You cannot say that it saved tens of thousands of lives. It doesn't back this up with anything, and that they were absolutely necessary. Also not true. There's plenty of other places that have not taken the same measures. So they were not absolutely necessary. It was chosen by him and other politicians. So whatever. Anyways, but just to show that the direction Canada is going now is that I think Saskatchewan removed restrictions. Now Ontario is removing restrictions, and Alberta, I heard, also removed restrictions. So it's interesting that at the same time that's happening, Justin Trudeau also is going ahead to become more of a tyrant, I suppose, and try to use an emergency act that's never been used. That's supposed to give him just greater power to, I guess, just to control people, basically. I read up on the act because I'm not a lawyer or anything, but I read both on the BBC and on CBC and BBC News here. They were detailing what the Emergencies Act grants, what kind of power the act grants, and under which circumstances that it can be invoked. And basically the conclusion would be that he cannot invoke this act for this kind of scenario because it does not apply to, even BBC quite clearly say that it does not apply to lawful protests. And it's supposed to be threats of use of acts of serious violence for political, religious, or ideological objectives, or covert unlawful acts, or espionage, or foreign influenced activities. And we who have followed this protest in detail and looked at all the live streams and what's happening on site and what's being said, what the demands are, what people are protesting for, I mean, none of these criteria apply. And there's other parts of the Emergency Act that apply for more public health scenarios or war scenarios that does not apply in this situation. So, wait. I have a dog here that sometimes wants to be on camera. Right now, you cannot be on camera, my man. Anyways. See, sorry, I'm getting interrupted. You know, when you have a dog and he wants to be scratched on his head, then it's quite hard to to ignore him, right? But what I was going to talk about anyways, because there's plenty more people that's more knowledgeable than me in all of these areas. So but what I found interesting, because I was digging a little bit about this law and trying to read up on it, and what I saw was that it's based on an older law that it replaced in, I think, 1988. And let's see if I find it here. Here's the overview. So it was originally the War Measures Act, and there was a federal law that came into place after or right around the outbreak of World War I, which is interesting to me because what always happens, right, is that these laws and these granting the government this kind of power always happens in times of crisis. And that's why you got to be so careful about doing that. Because when this law first came into place, and it granted extraordinary powers, right? They were allowed to they gave the government power over censorship, forceful prevention of publication, writings, and so forth, like complete control of censorship of all publications and communications. And they could arrest, detain, exclude, deport people, control the harbors, control all transportation, trading, exportation, importation, production, and manufacture, and also taking over property and disposing of property. So you can see it was really like really harsh measures and extraordinary powers that were given to the government in 1914. And this is why we have this today. Like, so the issue with Justin Trudeau now being able to invoke the Emergency Act is because you first instated this War Measures Act. So that's why you got to be so careful. We've seen this a lot these last 2 years. A lot of people have been advocating to give the government more power, because people are afraid when there is scary stuff happening, right? People get scared, they get afraid, and they want someone to save them. And some people, especially governments, will take advantage of that fear. So we have seen this in Sweden too. We have had people pushing for removal of individual rights, all kinds of freedoms. I mean, I don't have to tell you, right? We've seen this over the entire world. There's been a big push from a lot of people to remove individual freedom and give a lot more power to the state. But the problem with that, right, is that the state does not give that power back. And it won't be the same state you like using that power maybe in 70 years or something like that. So what you can see now, what Trudeau is doing, I think, would not be possible unless you first had the War Measures Act, right? And that's why you have to be so careful, right? But yeah. But anyways, what I still think that Justin Trudeau, he cannot, he's not going to come out of this as a winner, you know. You're already seeing these provinces all around Canada starting to remove restrictions or plan to remove restrictions, which is what the protesters want. So I was really thinking here to try to figure out what would I do if I was Trudeau and I was also like a petty tyrant, right? And it would be more logical for him to somehow try to save face, because the tide is turning one way. And you can see that also in that other politicians are really finding ways to exploit this situation. Like all his opponents in the Conservatives are exploiting this situation, and they will keep exploiting this situation. And you can already, since you see the entire world moving in one direction, which is to remove restrictions and to open up society, it's kind of weird to see Trudeau clinging to this notion that he's supposed to extinguish this, what I guess sees as a rebellion of a kind, because there's no really way for him to win here. So I really hope that he doesn't go down this path, because these are dangerous things to do. These are measures that could lead to, violence and people getting hurt. So that's why I really hope that it doesn't turn out this way. But I think he did a big mistake by even talking about invoking this, because I think there's not a lot of people on his side in this matter. So we'll see, and we'll keep an eye on this, but it's going to be interesting to see for sure. And my camera died, so I guess I'll close now. But yeah, until next time. Bye.